As the sun breaks across the horizon and begins again the renewal of the earth, so too let this period of worship, marked in the beginning by a flame breaking against our souls, be a renewal and rekindling of our spirit. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Cross Street Chapel's Sunday service. I'm grateful for your presence here, for those who join us in person, as well as those who are following online. And I hope that whatever it is that you are seeking here, be it a time of joy and celebration, a time of tears and sorrow, perhaps a period of thoughtful reflection, or some words of wisdom, and a chance to connect with one another as well as the divine. Whatever it is that has brought you here, I hope you'll find it, as well as a warm community. I am grateful as well that we're heading, quite stridently through February, which can be quite a difficult month. And I've heard some positive comments about that sort of, I don't say catch me off guard, but I know this can be a difficult time for many people. So, however you are, I hope that you can make it through the month together. So we had our chalice lighting, and we turn as well to our call to worship with these words of the Reverend Vernon Marshall. Welcome into this temple of resolution, where we seek renewal to face a world of challenge, where we open our hearts to the healing balm of love, where we rejoice in the miracle of life. May all who respond to the call of conscience and yearn for fellowship and freedom find a place amongst us and, like us, feel a welcome into this temple of peace. Amen. All who respond to that call of conscience and yearn for fellowship in freedom. Central tenets within our faith. Singing as well is a great part of our faith. So let us sing together our first hymn in the Green Book, number 8, Samuel Longfellow's Life That Maketh All Things New, hymn number 8. We turn now to a time of prayer with these words of Jess Reynolds. This is then followed by our covenant, which is printed in your order of worship and will appear online for those following at home. But first, these words. Here you are, here in this holy space, standing on this ground that is holy, because you are here. Here you are, in flesh and bone, filling up this body that belongs to you alone. Your pumping heart is a wonder because it keeps you alive. Your loving heart is a blessing because it keeps all of us alive. The spirit of love has a home in you. May we all see that love in you, and let our hearts become mirrors for the compassion at your core. The spirit of justice has a home in you. May we light our wicks from one another until we are all aflame, until we burn out every prejudice we carry in these bones. Here you are, holy as you are, and blessed be. Amen. And please read with me our covenant. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renew the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other and ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. Amen. Today's story is called, and it's important to have stories. I think it's not just sort of that, tapping into something young in our hearts, but actually the more I've thought about why I want to sort of make sure we have this period and this point, is to recognize the depth of character that we have and the depth of potential that our worship can have. Books, especially children's books, have lots of light and color to them, which as beautiful as our chapel is, with this sort of clean slate that we can bring onto it whatever we need. I think sort of having sort of a bit of color, a bit of flash, can be a sort of welcome addition. And as well, the way these stories are written, either if they're being told in a storytelling format that can speak to some deeper truth in a simpler language, or just the poetic character of these books, I think is important. So it's not just about becoming young at heart, but I think there's something quite deep for us that we can encounter together with our story. So today's story is The Mangrove Tree by Susan Roth and Cindy Trumbore, and it is based on a true story on the edge of Eritrea, and involves a scientist, Dr. Gordon Sato. By the Red Sea, in the African country of Eritrea, lies a little village called Hargigo. The children play in the dust between houses made of cloth, tin cans, and flattened iron. The families used to be hungry. Their animals were hungry too. But then things began to change, all because of a tree. See the village here. And like they say, all because of a tree. And this is the tree, the mangrove tree. So the land in Hargigo is dry and dusty. There's very little rain. It was hard for leafy plants to grow, and the sheep and goats that eat the leaves did not have enough food. Then a scientist had an idea: to plant mangrove trees by the shore of the salty Red Sea, so the animals could eat the fat green leaves of the trees. So these are the trees, the mangrove trees, that are planted by the sea. Now we know, of course, trees come from, this is your chance to participate, seeds and seedlings, very well. I mean, I know sort of evolution means that I'm sure there's other forms of reproduction for plants, but these trees come from seeds and seedlings. And so these are the seedlings that grew into trees, mangrove trees that were planted by the sea. Now, such a large project, you can't leave it to the seeds to grow themselves, so they need to have people to tend them. And Dr. Sato realized that there were many women in the area that either had to sort of travel to work or were unable to sort of work because of the economic conditions in the area. So he felt it would be helpful to support them financially by paying them to tend to the seeds. So these are the women who tended the seedlings that grew into trees, mangrove trees, that were planted by the sea. So the mangrove trees became a leafy green forest 4 miles long. Like all plants, mangrove trees help the environment. Their leaves take carbon dioxide out of the air. In exchange, the leaves give off oxygen, which people and animals need to breathe. Which means they have these beautiful, plump leaves. These are the leaves, all plump and green, that wave in the trees that grew from the seedlings the women tended, a forest of trees, mangrove trees, that were planted by the sea. The sheep and the goats gobbled up the mangrove leaves. Gordon studied how much weight the animals gained from eating the leaves. He decided they needed more protein to grow bigger and have healthier babies. So the goats and sheep were fed a mix of mangrove leaves, dried mangrove seeds, and ground up dried fish. This mixture helped the mother animals produce more nutritious milk for their kids and lambs. These are the goats. And these are the sheep that eat the leaves, all plump and green, that wave in the trees that grew from the seedlings that women tended, a forest of trees, mangrove trees, that were planted by the sea. Before Gordon started the mangrove tree planting project, the village shepherds had to walk into the highlands far away to find food for their sheep and goats. Once plenty of healthy food was available nearby, the animals lived longer, and the shepherds saw their flocks of sheep and goats multiply. So these are the shepherds who watch the goats and watch the sheep that eat the leaves, all plump and green, that wave in the trees that grew from the seedlings the women tended, a forest of trees, mangrove trees, that were planted by the sea. Now the people of Hargigo use every part of the mangrove tree. Bundles of dry branches are fuel for the fires that cook food, for the mothers and fathers and children. There is more meat to cook and more milk to drink because the families own more animals and the children are healthier. These are the children with dusty feet who play as the shepherds watch the goats and watch the sheep that eat the leaves, all plump and green, that wave in the trees that grew from the seedlings that women tended, a forest of trees, mangrove trees, that were planted by the sea. Mangrove trees, tree roots are hiding places for many sea creatures, such as small fish, crabs, shrimp, and oysters. These small creatures attract bigger fish, and as a result, the local fishermen catch more and more fish for their families to eat and sell. These are the fishermen who catch the fish that swim in the roots of the mangrove trees. Fathers of children with dusty feet who play as the shepherds with the goats and watch the sheep that eat the leaves, all plump and green, that wave in the trees that grew from the seedlings the women tended, a forest of trees, mangrove trees that were planted by the sea. Today, Gordon dreams of mangrove forests planted in many parts of the world. He sees mangroves growing in countries with seacoasts similar to Eritrea's, such as Mexico, Peru, and Somalia. He also sees mangroves in desert areas, including the Sahara in Africa and the Atacama Desert in South America, where seawater can be pumped in. The trees would help the local people in all the ways that Gordon's project had helped the villagers of Hargigo. And this is Gordon, whose greatest wish is to help all the fishermen catch their fish, to help the children with dusty feet, to help the shepherds who watch the goats and sheep, to help the women who tend the seedlings. By planting trees, mangrove trees, by the sea. The Mangrove Tree, Planting Trees to Feed Families by Susan Roth and Cindy Krumbauer. So you have a chance to share your joys and your sorrows, your trials, as well as your triumphs. If you want to share these publicly, please come forward and light a candle. If you wish to have a few words to say, please come to the microphone so those using the loop system and those listening online will be able to hear you. If you are online, please type into the chat box and we will read your message out. As always, you can light a candle in silence, or if you wish to remain seated, Know that your presence here is enough.
It's in memory of my lovely husband, John, whose anniversary is this week.
I'd just like to wish Robin a happy birthday. I know it's been a difficult year from conversations that we've had, and it's lovely to see him here today.
I just want to say thank you for story time, because it's one of the very few things I actually miss about teaching is a good storybook.
for all those joys and sorrows here spoken, and those that remain silently in our hearts. Let us sing now our next hymn in the Green Book, number 41, I Cannot Lose Thee, hymn number 41. Those words from Eliza Scudder. We turn now to our next reading with words by Doris Lessing, the South African writer. This is a reflection that she did on her, and sort of a collaborative work she did, which I'll talk about later with Philip Glass. So reflections on writing an opera. If the question is, why do writers like working on operas, then at least one of the answers must be that most boring of cliches, that writers' lives are solitary, and to be involved in operas, to find oneself in a world that could not be more different from the sober disciplines of novel writing. That is one thing, the pleasures and perils of working in a group. But there is something I did not expect when I began. Words are our trade, not merely the sense, but the music of words. And in the links between sense and sound are hidden all kinds of mysteries, as poets know. When something you have written becomes interpreted by music, then sounds and thoughts that perhaps you only half consciously knew were there become real, are brought out by the music and the musician. Easy to see this on a physical level. Writing the novel Representative, I heard the grinding of the ice, the violence of the winds, but the music made variations I had not heard. But when I heard the voices of the travelers in the storm being snatched away to become part of the voices of the storm, I did not know that these voices as music would acquire depths I had not thought of. The journey of the representatives into annihilation to be reborn as a new whole had been in my mind's ear as the earthly transmuting to the unearthly. But hearing it, I knew that music enriched it, lifted the idea. And opera involves all the arts. Music, both instrumental and singing, designs of all kinds, the magic of color, the charm of storytelling words. Opening oneself to all this is to find resonances and responses that can be unexpected, may even be the start of a new idea for a novel. My recent novel, Love Again, came out of my work for opera and in the theater. There is nothing more poignant than watching a play or an opera take shape, blown together for a time, and then that's it, the end. And never again will this particular combination of people, talents, sounds, colors, shapes exist. It's gone for good. Some reflections on Writing an Opera by Doris Lessing. Let us return now to a time of prayer with these words of Lynn Cox. Spirit of life, who draws us together in a web of holy relationships, make your presence known with us and in us and among us. Remind us that we are not alone in history. Ignite us with the courage of the living tradition. Remind us that we are not alone in entering the future. Anchor us with patience and perseverance. Remind us that we are not alone in our times of grief and pain. Comfort us with your Spirit, manifest in human hands and voices. Remind us that we are not alone in joy and wonder. Inspire us to honor and extend the beauty we find in this world. Divine music of the universe, let our hearts beat in diverse and harmonious rhythms, cooperating with an everlasting dance of love. May we move with the rhythms of peace. May we move with the rhythms of compassion. May we move with the rhythms of justice. Source of stars and planets and water and land, open our hearts to all of our neighbors. Open our souls to a renewal of faith. Open our hands to join together in the work ahead. So be it, blessed be, and amen. And so we enter into a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, and personal prayer. Let us sing now our next hymn in the Green Book, number 180. This old world is full of sorrow. Hymn number 180. Two minor hymns in one Sunday service. I want to begin with a slight trigger warning that today's sermon begins with an act of environmental violence. That's how it sort of begins, so for your awareness and guard. And it's a story about a community that lives on a beach, not the mangrove community in Eritrea, as we heard about. We will talk about them later. But this village was concerned about the number of starfish that were washing up on their shore. So they decided to take action. They would, and there's, as I said, sort of some issue with this, decided to cut up the starfish into smaller pieces and throw them back into the sea. As you might remember from biology, starfish possess the ability not only to grow back appendages, but to basically sprout whole new bodies. So for every starfish that was assaulted, 6 more would return. As Ian Malcolm points out in the film Jurassic Park, life finds a way. That impulse to live, to persevere is strong, and for the whole of nature may demonstrate our follies in attempting to vanquish it. Despite our best efforts, the dandelion pushes through the concrete, and we quickly see our tempering down of nature often comes to naught. That's the way the story is often interpreted. Nature continually gets the better of us. As George Carlin pointed out, the environmental movement may ultimately be about our survival. The planet isn't going anywhere. We are. Nature as a whole will survive, albeit in a possibly significantly different way. No matter how many starfish we cut up, the world will send us more, or something else. The fate of humanity is brought into stark relief by Doris Lessing. Our reading today was a reflection on her work on an opera with Philip Glass. The opera in question is The Making of the Representative for Planet 8. Is anyone familiar with that? Either the opera or the wonderful. That's great. I wasn't sure who might recognize it. It is. It's based on a book that she wrote, and as this sort of question attests, it was not necessarily Philip Glass's most successful work, and there are, to my knowledge, no available recordings online. It had aired on BBC Radio 3. And someone had managed to copy that recording and put it on YouTube, but of course the bugbear of copyright meant that it was removed. So you'll have to, unlike Doris Lessing, use your imagination to imagine the grinding of the ice and the sounds of the representative. The story centers on a planet that is facing an impending ice age. The inhabitants are instructed by their caretakers not to fear, this inevitable extinction, but rather to see their death as the blossoming of a universal life that will survive the destruction of the planet. The image is of individuals passing on to greater consciousness, which for some illustrates a potential resolution to that final question of our existence. Indeed, my own personal theological views sort of root on that our death brings us into something greater than ourselves, perhaps greater than our sort of consciousness or awareness might be able to describe. But I know for many of us we hold differing views. We can easily use it, though, for a reflection of our own current predicament. With climate change, we are facing not only our own death, but also that of countless species. To survive in any appreciable form will require a death. But it will be instead the death of our lifestyle, the death of reckless consumerism, the death of an adherence to non-renewable resources, the death to an indifference of worldwide suffering. We will have to start seeing ourselves as part of creation, as part of the earth. The West has for a long time cultivated a split in the human experience, that there is a body and there is a spirit, there is a vessel and there is a soul. And as we know, that politically separate but equal does not exist, so too do we create a hierarchy when we do this. Historically, we have scorned the body and uplifted the soul, mortified the flesh, and transcended the spirit, considered one holy and the other the seat of temptation. One elevates us, the other denigrates us. At least that is the West's conventional wisdom. But it has not always been so. Past cultures and those across the world celebrate our connection to the world. Acknowledging where our body comes from and the blessing of the fruits that sustain it is important to many peoples. Were we to see our place in the earth as not a secondary concern, we could orient ourselves to the world's care and our survival. Part of what I'm driving at is that even when we mark the significance of our bodily existence, we may, in a way, actually still be denigrating it. Often when we realize humanity is the problem, we may see it as having no place in the solution. And for a while, this was how I felt, that whatever step we took would trod on nature. Whatever act, even those we attempt to do selflessly, would somehow inevitably be at the earth's expense. But the story we have heard today gives us hope. We hear of a community near the sea, a different community. The biologist, Dr. Gordon Sato, suspects that a plant that is tolerant of salty water and not imperiled by desert conditions could be helped for this community in Eritrea on the edge of the Red Sea. The trees, in turn, provides food for the animals, economic opportunities for the women, and shade for the children. When we imagine ourselves becoming part of nature, we must act for nature. We cannot be above it, but nor must we see our actions as purely destructive. This is a grand opportunity, giving each their responsibilities and their gifts in turn. That includes humans. And provided we maintain a measure of humility, literally humus, the earth and the ground that brings forth life, then we will reclaim not only the survival of our species, but our soul as well. But we must be part of this grand community. And as we heard as well from Doris Lessing, the community can be a place of great blessing. She describes how, in writing her book, she imagined the sounds of the environment. But Philip Glass brought something more to the table, a different perspective, his expertise in composition, something else that Lessing didn't have. And together they were able to create something more. I see this notion as divinity peeking through the page. Returning to Lessing's story about the distant planet facing extinction, we hear something else. a community that comes together as they face the ultimate challenge. The people join one another in an essence that transcends the material existence. This may sound like it goes against all that we've just spoken of our earthiness, our responsibilities to the planet, the synthesis of mind and body. But I want us to focus on the image of community. As we have continued through the new year, I have heard many stories of illness and difficulty. We've often seen more colds in wintertime, so it would not be much of a surprise, but sitting alongside are stories of bereavement and crisis. I may speak generally here from the pulpit, but I have heard specifically of loss and pain, of conflict and sorrow. And if we are brave enough to sit with one another in these circumstances, our community will confer upon us a blessing. I know the story of the starfish was perhaps a brutal way to begin, but I see in it that we think we can put something away and it will come back, and it will come back stronger. Hide your memories, push down these emotions, avoid eye contact with people that you've had arguments with. We think all of these, like the changing climate, will vanish if unseen. I know, surprising when this doesn't happen. Unexpected things return, even when we try to keep them at arm's length. Love for those who have been injured in the heart will come back. Hope for those who have seen failures again and again will come back. Support for those who have traveled alone and often feel lonely will come back. Forgiveness for those who think they have transgressed permanently will come back. No matter how many times we push nature away, it returns. It will consume us, and our best bet is to enjoy in it and learn to live alongside it and contribute to its life. And though we each face losses in our lives, our community is here for our return, blessing us with hope, with love, and compassion. Amen. A few notices before we sing our final hymn. If you do need to speak with me, you can speak with me after the service, or you can write to minister@crossstreetchapel.org.uk. You can write to me as well if you wish to join our mailing list. We're grateful for anyone to sort of assist with volunteering, things such as greeting, reading, providing flowers, assisting with the IT, or helping with the tea and coffee. Do we have anyone to help with tea and coffee today? Thank you, Carl. We're also grateful for any donations that can assist the mission of our chapel. You can donate online at justgiving.com/crossstreetchapelmanchester. You can email me about setting up a standing order, or if you're here in person, we have a retiring collection along with envelopes if you're a UK taxpayer, so we may claim gift aid. And if this is your first time in our chapel, your presence here is enough. We're just grateful that you have joined our community today, so do not feel pressured or obliged to contribute financially. You have on the back of your order of worship some upcoming events. Faith in Life will be here after the service at 12:30. This is a chance for people to share their lives, sort of spiritual explorations, recent and historic, in a safe and confidential environment, and hopefully you feel sort of compassionate and welcomed in that space. So that's 12:30 today. It can last anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. We will make sure to finish by 2, but we may finish a little earlier from that. So that's today. Next week, we have our special general meeting. You have a paper in your order of worship sort of detailing, I was going to say, the very big picture point of what we'll be discussing. That's at 12 o'clock. Let us know if you're coming. If you want to bring some food, please do, but don't feel obliged. We just do need to know numbers so that we can make sure that everyone feels sufficiently fed. That's next week, the 18th. And then on the 23rd, we have the Calder Piano Trio. That's Friday at 1 p.m. All our recitals are free, but we're grateful for any contributions that go to the artists to recognize their time, talent, and energy. And then there's a few other announcements for March, which I'll leave at this point. Are there any announcements from the congregation? Let us then sing our final hymn, number 76, Immortal Invisible, hymn number 100, sorry, hymn just 76, no one, hymn number 76. Thank you, Joe, for the IT. Thank you, Sonia and Robin, for helping to set up and for greeting. Thank you, Carol, for the tea and coffee that we're about to enjoy. And Sonia as well for these flowers that you've brought today. And thank you to all of you for creating and sharing worship today. We close with the words of our friend Don Buckle, who's a member of the Duckenfield Unitarians. We have opened ourselves to worship today. May the peace of this house bring us calm. May the joy of this time make our hearts glad. May the challenge of this time awaken our courage, and may the communion of our time together confirm our togetherness. Amen.